Hey, what's up, people? This is Elder Tenchi bringing you another episode of On the Brain. And you know what? Since a lot of Spider-Man fans, are getting ready for the Ultimate Spider-Man premiere on Disney XD tomorrow, I figured, hey, I'm just gonna talk about my favorite Spider-Man series and likes, dislikes, and stuff like that. I'm just gonna go down memory lane. All right, now we all know there has been a lot of adaptations of Spider-Man, both in the comic world and also the animated world. And I was first introduced to the webhead in '94 on Fox Kids with the original Spider-Man cartoon. And one thing I loved about, Spider-Man as well as Peter Parker is the fact that he had real problems. You know, he was a hero that you could relate to. Yeah, I love the web slinging. Yeah, I love the fact that he was smart. Yeah, I loved the animation. Even though at the time I wasn't paying attention to everything, but I did to the certain key points. But it was just a cartoon to me. But at the same time, I was like, he's got some real issues. He's got homework issues. He's got, going out at night, saving trying to save the city, looking after his aunt, trying to find love, all that stuff. And that it was not until later on that I figured out all the stuff that he was going through, with the exception of saving the city, that we all go through in some way, shape, or form. So, you know what? That's it. Thank you, Spider-Man, for helping me learn that. And the thing was, I had no idea that there was other Spider-Man cartoons other than this. I didn't know about the original 1967, cartoon, or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends until like later on during reruns. I would watch them when UPN, if anybody remembers UPN before it became the CW. In the early days of UPN, they had a kids block of shows that included the X-Men, that included a few other things that right now I cannot remember, and and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And you're introduced to Spider-Man and Firestar and also Iceman and also the X-Men. Because I remember an episode where the X-Men actually made an appearance, the early version of the X-Men. I'm talking like Wolverine wearing different colors, Cyclops being a little bit bulkier, and Professor X being in a wheelchair instead of a floating wheelchair. You know what I mean? And it was cool to me because I always loved those old style cartoons. Everything from Hanna-Barbera up into the early Marvel cartoons like Jim and and then later on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And those were cool. Those were cool adventures they would go on. They were three college kids met while they were in school, and they found out that all three of them shared a secret. They were superheroes. Angelica, aka Firestar, was a character specifically made for that show. I didn't know that either. She was specifically made for that show, and she looked like Mary Jane without the mask and everything. She looked like an early version of Mary Jane. So for a minute when I was watching the show, I thought that was Mary Jane, and for some reason she was a superhero because they look so much alike. If you go back to the 1994 series and then look at Angelica from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, they're animated the exact, well, not animated, but their character forms look exactly the same, from the hair down to the face. It all looks the same, including body. It all looks the same. That was cool. They're two different heroes. One's an early X-Men. The other one is just the girl trying to get her acting career together and going through life and being in love with someone who keeps on disappearing in and out, in and out. It's funny to look at that stuff now because it's a lot deeper than we think. You know what I'm saying? Not all these cartoons are just for kids. That's the misconception about most cartoons. You think it's just for kids? Please, you can learn from just about anything if you think hard enough. Or you don't even have to think about it. It's just right in your face, So, going back Spider-Man Unlimited, right after Spider-Man 1994, I did not enjoy. For some reason, it looked like a nice, well-drawn, well-inked comic, but for some reason, it did not appeal to me. I don't know why. It just didn't. The story to me wasn't all there. Like, yeah, now he's got a brand new suit that's made up from a bunch of nano robots, and he's in a new dimension where everything, that he knows is there, but it's different. It's like post-apocalyptic type stuff. And you'd think I'd be into that, right? Because I like futuristic type stuff, but for some reason it just didn't appeal to me. I thought it was whack. And then after 13 episodes, it disappeared. Now, a lot of people will probably tell you, yeah, it was a good show, they should have continued it. Sure. I'm just one. I don't, you know what? I'm not trying to say that you're wrong, because you're not. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I just didn't like it myself. But I did enjoy Spectacular Spider-Man. When Spectacular Spider-Man came out a few years ago, I was watching it because it was a brand new Spider-Man show, and he was in high school this time around. It was a little bit more modernized, to fit the times. Because each show is trying to fit where where it's coming from. So they were talking about modern stuff, and then that's when you saw most of Gwen Stacy in the animated universe. Because as far as I remember, you don't really see Gwen Stacy all that much. In the original 1994 one, yeah, you saw her a couple times, but not all that much at all. Even though she's supposed to be a staple within Spider-Man's world, his first love, but they didn't even do that in the original animated series. And I don't know how it was in the 1960s version. But as far as I know, I was first introduced to Gwen Stacy through comic pages, as well as the Spectacular Spider-Man show. When that got cut off after just 2 seasons, I'm like, why? And then I found out it had something to do with the fact that Marvel was bought by Disney, and then Sony decided to basically keep the rights to just keep the rights to just Spider-Man, but they cut off the show, and now I'm looking at a lot of people on the internet now are saying that the new Ultimate Spider-Man show looks similar to Spectacular Spider-Man, right? And some people are already saying it's whack just because of the stuff you've seen in the trailer. We're not gonna know until the first episode comes out. I give every show I watch at least an episode or 3. If I'm really into it, anybody will tell you, if you know me, I'm gonna be into it. I'm gonna be talking about it. I'm gonna be waiting for the next one. I'm just gonna be just like hyped. I'm just gonna nerd out. I'm glad that it's coming on in the morning. I'm really glad it's coming on in the morning. I wish that the whole Disney Marvel Universe block on XD was more than an hour long, but you got Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, the shorts and also the Avengers Mightiest Heroes, which is a dope show. I don't care what nobody says. That show right now, that should be the flagship show for Marvel animations right now. You know what I'm saying? Here's, and this is kind of on subject but off subject. Here's some of the what I think Marvel should keep doing. You've done shows like X-Men. You've done